What is up, my fellow Chibits? As you can see, I'm once again sitting in my chair because I have a lot to cover this week. I don't know if this review is going to be as long as last week's review. I cannot believe it was that long, but I don't think this review is going to be as long as last week's review. And now, I do want to say, I do know about, like, a tarot card. I think a tarot card number 6 on Eto, which I will briefly cover. But I'm not going to really focus on that tarot card in this video. I will do that for a separate video, probably an Eto video eventually coming up very soon. But for now, I'm just going to focus on the chapter. So, as always, if you're new to these Tokyo Ghoul reviews, I'm going to be going by page through the pages, analyzing the chapter, looking through the meaning and the structure of the story. I have my different links and my notes placed on the screen if I can look through them, for I can remember what I'm talking about for all of you. So if you see me not actually looking at you, it's because I'm looking at my notes and what I want to cover about this chapter. And so, anyway, strap yourselves down, prepare for another Tokyo Ghoul review, chapter 39. So, we're going to start off on the first page, like always, and it starts off with the Chipper, or Kijima. And as last week's chapter concluded, if you remember, to do a brief summary, last week's chapter is where there was a news video, or a video posted on the CCG website that Kijima made. He tortured that ghoul of the Rosewald family and, cut off the tongue. And pretty much you had it to where he posted this on a website that anyone can see. For instance, me as like a civilian, like if I was in the Tokyo Ghoul verse, me as a civilian could go to the CCG website and I could watch that video, uncensored. So, obviously, that was a huge, crucial importance to this chapter right at the beginning, and I'm glad we got to dive into that right off the bat, and we got to see the repercussions of what Kijima actually did. And so, that's kind of what this first page is about. So, you have it to where there's a conversation going on right now with Kijima. He's pretty much getting backlash for what he has done, for posting this video online, because, as you know, civilians like me or something could go watch that, and even children, like, under the age of 18 could watch a video like that, and once it's posted online, if you delete it off of CCG, with the internet nowadays, anyone can grab the video, re-upload it to different sites, and you can never get rid of that video. So, of course, since it was already uploaded once, there's nothing you can do about it. It's there permanently. It's not leaving the internet, because like I said, once a video is uploaded and someone finds it and it gets views or whatever, and if you remove it, eventually someone's going to re-upload it and put it on the website or internet somewhere, so you can never remove that video. So that's permanently on the internet for everybody to see, and that's kind of what is going on in the first page. Now, to get back to the point of what this first page is, you just got to find out that the video that was on the CCG website was put on restricted access. That means nobody else can see it. Probably only top officials of CCG or only members of CCG can view this video. And it, like I already covered earlier on in this video, it doesn't matter, because since it was already open to the public eye and anyone can view it, that means anyone could grab that video and re-upload it anywhere. So even though it's restricted and it's on private or, whatever, or unlisted, it doesn't change anything, because, like I said, it's going to be re-uploaded. So even though it's restricted, it's still out there for others to view. And that's kind of what is going on right now. So this entire dialogue is just pretty much covering that Kijima offered himself up as bait. He's putting himself up as bait for he can get more information about the Rosewald investigation. That's what's going on right now. And he's like, I don't give a shit about myself. Like, let's actually quickly cover this. So we get a little bit of characterization of Kijima, because we don't really know much about this man besides him, I guess, having his face ripped off. And, I mean, as we already found out, he's not the person that tortured Jason, because that's already been confirmed. It wasn't this dude. Kijima didn't do it, even though he's called the Chipper, and there was a lot of correlations with him being a torturer. But there's something else going on behind the scenes, and as I've already briefly covered before, I still believe he's part of the V organization. It's very obvious, his entire hand movements, but I'm not going to get back into that because I've already covered that beforehand in previous reviews, so I really don't need to dive into that again. Now, getting back to the point of this panel, the characterization we get, besides the V information stuff that we got previous chapters, you have where Kijima says he does not value his life at all. Like, he's aware that he put himself off as bait. He doesn't give a shit. He's fine with putting himself on this site for any ghoul can see, or any person or body, whatever, can view him and come after his ass after what he did. He doesn't care. He's like, I don't value my life. And this is what he says. I want to quote Kijima. If I were as pretty as you, then maybe I would a little. That, for instance, he's saying maybe I would value my life just a little bit. But this is what he says after that. But I don't care how an ugly body like mine gets used. So, he doesn't care about pain. For instance, if his body gets torn up, if he loses legs or limbs or anything, he doesn't give a shit. He doesn't give a shit what happens to his body. He doesn't give a shit if he dies. He will use any means necessary to accomplish what he wants to do, which makes him a very, very, very scary fucking character, because one of the scariest things you need to realize when it comes to a person is someone that doesn't value their own life, someone that doesn't give a shit about their own self. Someone like that with the means and assets to be able to accomplish big things, for instance, a part of CCG, and being someone like in his type of status, and maybe even part of V, for someone like him to not value his own life and have that much access to power, that's a scary, scary person, because this man would do anything, regardless of his life. See, if a man doesn't even value his own life, he doesn't value others' lives. End of story, right there. If a man doesn't care about his own self, he most likely does not care about anyone else, or cares about anything at all. And that would mean this man would do anything to do what he wants to do, to seek out what he wants to accomplish. And that's something we really don't know. We don't know what Kijima's goal is, and you can only do pop shot theories and different things like that. Even the V thing, it's not confirmed, but, I mean, knowing Ishida, he wouldn't do something like that. But we don't know his motive, why he's doing what he's doing, besides being a part of CCG, and I'm willing to bet there's something else out there. I mean, what changed him to where he doesn't value his own life? I mean, at one point or time when he became a part of CCG, before he became a part of CCG, did he experience a part where a ghoul bit off a part of his face, and did his family get eaten or something, and maybe that's why he doesn't value his life or anyone else's life? That is a good possibility, but that is my theory to Kijima so far after viewing this first page, so let's move on. So as per usual, the second page is, the color page, so I'm not really going to count that. So the next page after that's the second page. Now we get into more of the dialogue with what's going on with Kijima, and we get a mention of the countermeasure law. And to be honest with you, Chibits, I did not recognize or remember the countermeasure law. So I decided to go online and type in, okay, Tokyo Ghoul countermeasure law. I typed that in because for the life of me, I couldn't fucking remember it. And forgive me for that. So, thankfully, I did my research, and I actually have a link here, and it's on the Tokyo Ghoul Wiki, and I'm going to actually read the laws to refresh you all if you forgot as well. So, the Ghoul Countermeasures Law. In Tokyo Ghoul, the Ghoul Countermeasures Law provides the legal foundation for the prosecution of ghouls by the Commission of Counter Ghoul. Now, here's the details of this law. The law lays down how a ghoul can be identified. Number 2, the law outlaws all ghouls. For instance, all ghouls are outlaws and criminals. Number 3, the humans that hide the identity of ghouls are to be punished harder than people who prevent the prosecution of a common criminal. Number 4, the law defines the duties of the investigator. Number 5, the law declares that no more pain should be inflicted to a ghoul than strictly necessary. And that is the law that Kijima broke. He ripped off a ghoul's tongue just to have a display case for a video, and it says he'll continue to do it more and more as it goes on. And that kind of goes along and breaks the law, the fifth law, or the fifth line of this law, of the law provisions of the countermeasure ghoul, because of, number 5 being broken. Kijima put more pain on the ghoul than that was actually necessary. And so that is kind of what Kijima broke in this chapter, and what was mentioned when he went against it. Now that I said that, I think I've refreshed all of you, and like I said, if you want to find this for yourself, just go to Google, type in Tokyo Ghoul countermeasure law. That's that simple, and it pops up right on the top. So, okay, back to page 2. Let's see, I covered this countermeasure law. Oh yeah, Kijima right now is taking a lot of backlash for this. As I've already briefly stated, he's getting a lot of backlash from CCG. He's about to get interrogated by it from what he has done. A lot of public eye is probably going against him too. He's probably going to get a lot of hell from what he has just done. And he most likely already was aware of this before he did it. So it once again goes to show you he doesn't give a shit about himself. He'll do anything to accomplish what he wants to do. And he says that he might even get kicked out of this investigation for his actions and what he did with this video. So, once again, goes to play the part where he just doesn't give a shit at all. Okay, so going back down, we get to see the public eye's opinion on this, and you have it to where a bunch of these civilians, random fodder civilians, start talking, and they're saying, like, did you see that video on CCG's side? That shit was nasty. Oh my fucking god, that was disgusting. And, you know, they were just talking about how it's crazy, disgusting, so forth, so on. You know, different average chat from civilians, you know, if you were to see something in that type of video. And then you go underneath that, and you get to see Urei and Mutsuki as they're walking out in public. As you know, they're part of CCG, so they're getting to witness the public outlash. And this is what Urei says in his mind. Those internet rubberneckers, they must live their lives like trash. That's what Urei says in his mind. So, as typical Urei, puts down everybody, trashes them, and is like, I'm better than all of you. You guys are fucking assholes. You're dirt. You're little worms. And, you know, Urei stuff. And right after that, he says out in the open, out of his mouth, not in his mind, to Mutsuki, don't mind what those morons say. And I felt this very interesting with how this was done, because this actually goes to show you a little bit of development for Urei. Now, I know I've given Urei a lot of hell in the past. I made fun of him for getting ate alive by Big Daddy, or Big Papa. I mean, I made fun of him a lot, and I still don't like him necessarily because of some of his actions he has done. But you do see some growth in his character when you look at this dialogue. As we know, after the actions of what he caused in the previous arc, the auction raid, you know what he caused to Mutsuki. I mean, you know how Mutsuki was upset and how he was upset because of what he did to Mutsuki. When he says that don't mind what those morons say, he's actually reassuring Mutsuki, and that goes to show you actually cares about Mutsuki in some form or extent than he used to. Because in the past, Urei would have never have said something like that to one of his partners. He wouldn't give a shit about them. He would say, like, fuck you guys, I don't care what you think. I mean, he wouldn't try to do that, but it goes to show you he's grown a lot closer to Mutsuki over time after the last arc, and he is trying to reassure him for what has happened. Now that I've said that, he says right after this, after what he says in his mind, or as he says out in the open, he says in his mind, at best, try to enjoy the shitty, useless lives you all have. So, he goes from trash-talking the civilians to reassuring Mutsuki, and then trash-talking the civilians once again in his mind. Classical Urei. What the fuck, man? You just... I'm not even gonna get into it. Like, I think that explains itself. That explains itself. I don't even think I need to actually dive into that. That explains it fucking itself. Okay, so going on to page 4 or 3, depending on if you count the color page or not, we get to see how Sasuke looks at this video, like how he looks at this video and what his outlook is on it, and how he perceives what happened. And you see where Shirazu asks Sasuke, like, you know, Sasuke, did you see that video? And then you see where Sasuke's face is shaded out, and it goes to show you he's in a process of a lot of thinking, deep thought. That's what that panel means. And he says, that method, it's just too cruel, no matter how you look at it. It's completely wrong. And this is also what he says. There has to be another way. And then Shirazu says, but aren't we going to kill them in the end? And then Sasuke's like, huh? And then Shirazu's like, it's nothing. So to get back to the earlier part of the panels before I get to the Shirazu stuff, the reason why, which is very obvious, I think any of us that's been reading Tokyo Ghoul can understand why Sasuke's upset with this method. I think any of us can realize this because Sasuke, or Kaneki, technically, since Sasuke's not really Kaneki because they're two different personalities, two souls in one body, he still has these vague memories about it. And of course Sasuke wouldn't like that method because Kaneki was tortured because of similar methods. You gotta remember that. So if you think about it, it makes a lot of sense now why Sasuke was kind of against that method and why he thinks there should be something different. And these type of issues actually lead on to probably most likely future problems in the future that foreshadow a possible torture scene of Sasuke once again, as I've been covering multiple times throughout my recent reviews. Now, getting into the Shirazu part, Shirazu says, like, we're just gonna kill them anyway, like, they're gonna end up getting killed anyways, and that's what Shirazu says to Sasuke. And from what you can pull out of that dialogue is Shirazu is still conflicted about the nightmares or the issues that happen to Nuts, the Nutcracker. And we do know that, you know, Shirazu very recently, he had a nightmare, and he had the reverse Hangman Tarot card given to him. And from that aspect, you know he's still conflicted about this entire issue, and you could tell it still weighs on his mind when he's like, they're just going to be killed anyways. And the reason why he's doing that, he's just trying to find a way to cope with the issues of what happened to the other ghouls when they get killed like they are. He's trying to figure out a coping mechanism. And that's what that panel with Shirazu actually means. So, now that we get past that, next page, page number 5 or 4, whatever, we move on to the Shu parts of, or Tsukiyama Shu parts of this chapter, which is going to probably contain a lot of the beef of this review. Whoa. Let me drink a cup of coffee. Holy shit. Okay, that's much better. Man, all this talking, man, all this fairy crafting. Okay, so, you remember to where Shu, he starts talking to his butlers, his servants and stuff of, you know, the Tsukiyama family, and he's just pretty much saying, like, I'm upset that Eliz is in so much pain right now. Like, you know, you can see in one of the panels, Eliz is just sitting there, huddled and down like this, all scared and sad, and, like, you see the eyes and the face is just in utter shock. And most likely you would be, too, if someone you cared about had their fucking tongue cut out, showed in the public eye for anyone can see, you most likely would be distraught as well, so you can understand probably the issues Eliz is going through at the moment, and you also get to see a little bit of development taking place in this, and I will cover this very soon in, you know, later part of this chapter review, but there is some really shocking character development taking place with Shu in this chapter, recent chapters. I've not really covered that much, actually. I'm mainly focused on how Shu is stuck in the past, but if you look at some of the things that are going on, Shu has actually developed. He has developed as a character, which has stunned me with some of the actions he has taken. For one thing, in the panel when, you know, Shu gets the viewpoint, you see his servants, you know, bowing to him and all that, you know, showing a sign of respect. He's like, you all went overboard, harvesting food for me again and again. And the actions of this, a way Shu actually says this, from what you can get, is that he feels bad. Like, he feels like he's upset for what the actions he's caused. For instance, the trauma or issues he's caused for his family, his butlers, his servants. Like, he's caused a lot of issues. Because, I mean, in his state to where he was, you know, like Daisy, like he was kind of insane, he was going mentally insane, he was causing so many issues for his fellow family members because they had to go out and overhunt for him, which was causing him to get captured by ghoul investigators. And he realizes, Shu realizes he's responsible for this, and he's very distraught about this, which goes to show you that Shu as a character, he does care about his family a lot, which leads into one of the subjects I want to talk about. As I've said for the past 2 chapter reviews, Shu has an option, and I'm not going to dive into exactly the entire details because I've already covered that quite well enough, but as I've said, Shu has 2 options. You know, he's either going to have to choose Sasuke Kaneki, or he's going to have to choose his family. If he goes down a certain road and he plays his cards wrong, that's what's going to have to happen. And after seeing this chapter, you see to where Shu does indeed care for his servants, his family. He does care for them so much. He loves them. He really, really cares for his family a lot for him to do what he is doing. I mean, he's taking a risk. I mean, he thinks that Sasuke is still Kaneki and that, you know, he'll listen to him. But you still see that Shu cares for his family very deeply, which might complicate matters in the future if Shu does have to choose either Kaneki or his family. If it does come to that entire ordeal, what will Shu choose? Because that will lead a lot of drama and issues and tragedy in the future of upcoming chapters of Tokyo Ghoul. So I can't wait to see where Ashita-sensei is going to be taking that in the near future. Now, besides responsibility going down and all that, you have it to where he wants to bring back Eliz's smile. For instance, Shu wants to bring back Eliz's smile that, you know, is currently distraught after what is going on with the ghoul being tortured, and she was trying to figure out a way for he can save this person, and he's like, I will move alone, so stay out of my way, you guys don't do nothing, I will move on my own, and let me do what I'm going to have to do. That's kind of what's going on right now. Now, moving on to the next page, you have it to where Shu has a conversation with Kanye. He's talking with Kanye, and he's like saying, okay, so Kanye, keep this between me and you. This is my plan. Keep this between me and you. Do not let the others know. It's a secret. I'm going to use Kaneki. The key to this entire operation I'm about to do is Kaneki. And what he means by this is he wants to use Sasuke, Mr. Sasuke, as he says, or, you know, Kaneki, whatever. I think Shu's just looking at Sasuke as Kaneki. He doesn't actually realize they're 2 different people. He's looking at Sasuke like he is the key to this operation. We're going to make him regain his memories back. We're going to get his memories back for he can remember what has happened in the past when he was Kaneki. We're going to make him realize that he's currently captured and being brainwashed by CCG, and we're going to use him to be able to get, you know, the ghoul back that has been captured by Kijima and being currently tortured. That is what's going on right now. And to do this, I wonder if if you think about it in a certain sense, Shu doesn't necessarily know about Hinami at the moment. Think about this, okay? And this actually just dawned on me in my mind, thinking about it. I think there might be an option in the future where there's going to be a choice that Sasuke and Shu is going to have to make. They're going to have to choose to make a choice to save this servant of the Tsukiyama family that's currently being tortured, or save Hinami from the Ghoul prison. Because whatever Sasuke chooses, like when he tries to save the Ghoul that's currently being tortured and held prisoner, if he saves that person, Kaneki has to run. Or Sasuke has to run. He's done. Like, CCG's dead to him. He can't stay in CCG anymore because he's a criminal. He just saved a Ghoul. And so, if he does that, he can't save Hinami. So I feel like there's going to come a time to where if he does remember, or if Sasuke does remember some form of his past, he's most likely going to tell Shu, and Shu and him are going to probably have to save Hinami instead of the servant that's currently locked up and being tortured. And also, this plays in an earlier part of the chapter. Remember when Shirazu says they're just going to end up dying anyways, why should we care? He's pretty much also talking about Hinami that's also been captured. So, yeah. Now, moving on. Let's see. Next part. Oh, yeah. I like the symbolism with the flowers. You gotta love Ishida. I've talked about it a lot. Ishida loves his flowers. He loves using the symbolism. And you get to see these flowers all around Shu in this chapter, which represents his reblooming. And I've covered this a lot. I've talked about it in depth with flowers and fungus and shit. Shu is reblooming. He's quickly reblooming. And Ishida is symbolizing this with a bunch of flowers around his body. It makes me so happy to see him reblooming, and even as a better person. Because there's a lot of different things going on that shows that Shu has matured a lot more compared to how he used to be. In the past, Shu was a character that would only care about wanting to eat Kaneki. You remember, in part 1 of Tokyo Ghoul, think about this. Shu didn't care about anyone. He didn't. From what actions we saw from Shu, he always had these hidden motives. And he still has these hidden motives. He's trying to, get Sasuke back as Kaneki. But he always had these hidden motives where he wanted to eat Kaneki. He didn't care about anyone. He didn't care about Hinami. He didn't care about Banjo. He didn't care about anyone. He didn't care about Anteku or anybody at all. He just wanted that Kaneki. He wanted him as an ingredient. He wanted to eat his ass. That's kind of what it was. And to see the actions he's taking in this chapter, especially with, caring about his family, to wanting to save Sasuke, not eat him, just save him. There's a lot of correlations here that just goes to show you he has matured. He's no longer looking at Sasuke or Kaneki as someone to eat, but someone as a close friend he wants to save. And this shows maturity and progression with Shu. Even though he's still living in the past, he has came to a realization that he cares so much about Kaneki that he doesn't really want to eat him to kill him. Like, he wants him around as a close friend to communicate and talk with. Which brings up the next point I want to talk about. Let me find it. I have it on one of my links here. Oh wait, I have it on my pictures right here. Give me a second. Oh yeah, here it is. Okay, so this was from chapter 33 of part 1. So you can check for yourself. It's chapter 33 of Tokyo Ghoul part 1. This is what Shu says to Kaneki when they meet in the park. However, all I ever wanted was a friend with which I could discuss the things we liked in a quiet place. Goes to show you that he's came to the realization that he no longer just wants to eat Kaneki. He wants him as a friend. A good, close friend. He realizes he made a lot of friends. Hinami, Banjo, and he cares deeply for them. Now that I've said that, let's see. I've talked about Kaneki or Sasuke. He's thinking that Sasuke got manipulated. He's being brainwashed in CCG. He's still stuck in the past, which kind of scares me because this leads into the next part. You have it to where Kanye, he's talking about, I'm happy to see Master Shu's spirit so high, but I wonder if it'll actually go that well. And I'm with Kanye at this moment, because this right here is like Ishida saying something very bad is going to happen. There's going to be a negative tragedy to what is about to happen in this arc, because one or the other is going to go down to where something bad will take place, where it'll be a tragedy. And that's what what Kanye is hinting at in that panel. Now, we get a little bit to Chi. Chi actually gets a little bit of a part of this chapter, and we get a little bit of characterization, and also come to find out the lifestyle of Chi, because Chi is surrounded in mystery. If you think about it, as we know, Chi is a human, and she's like a little mouse, or a pet. to the Tsukiyama family. And she gives this information constantly. She has all this information. She's helping out the Tsukiyama family, giving them information about ghouls or Kaneki, and helping out Kane, you know, help out where Shu can gain back his sense of self. And we come to see to where the second picture needs to be given to Shu. For instance, she's like, give the second picture to Shu, and then I'll be on my way, you be on your way, and listen to what he has to do. And she quickly says this, "Oh shit, I'm busy, gotta bounce." And what we get from this later on down the chapter, we come to find out that Chi is in a lot of shit. For instance, Chi is being chased by CCG because Chi has hacked into different news organizations, CCG websites, and gotten all this information and helping out ghouls that her social standing in society is not that good, from what, according to the translations of Imperial scans. So this is bad. This is very bad. So Chi is kind of like a fugitive. She's a fugitive being hunted down by CCG because she's helping out the Tsukiyama family. And she's on the run constantly. So it goes to show you right there. Now, we also get a panel in the exact same page with Chi. You see it to where Kanye, he looks up into the sky. And this panel with the sky is very ominous. It really is ominous because when you see skies in Tokyo Ghoul, and we see them sometimes, often, but not that often, you see sky panels. And when Ashita does these type of panels, when he has, like, just a sky popping up or flowers or something, usually those type of panels mean something. And when I think of these panels, when I see, like, a sky, I think of an ominous feeling. This ominous feeling that something bad is coming to fruition. And that is what the panel really gives me, those type of vibes, because all is not as it appears in this chapter. Now, moving into the next segment of this review, we get the Shu and Sasaki meeting in the park. And this has a lot of correlation, and once again, another shout out to previous chapters of Tokyo Ghoul Part 1. I want to let you know right now, if you go to chapter 33 of Tokyo Ghoul, that's Part 1, not Tokyo Ghoul Re, but Part 1 of Tokyo Ghoul. If you go to chapter 33, Shu and Kaneki meet in the park. And if you look at this chapter, chapter 39 of Tokyo Ghoul Re, Shu and Sasaki meet in the park. Very ironic, because as I pointed out in my last review, remember the Ure and then the Uta parts and stuff with the mask and stuff, the different lines and dialogue? It was like a correlation to part 1 of Tokyo Ghoul. That's kind of what is going on also in this chapter when it comes to the park scene with Shu and Sasaki. Which this is going to have a lot of the beef of the chapter and like the chapter review. Like there's a lot of stuff I want to talk about when it comes to this because there's so many different details that just line up with chapter 33, and it really goes to show you the different perspective of what is currently going on with Shu's mindset, Sasaki's mindset, and how different Sasaki is from Kaneki and the aftermath of what happened at the end of part 1 of Tokyo Ghoul. Now, you have it to where Shu walks up to Sasaki in the park, and, you know, Sasaki's just reading a book by himself, and that's kind of what was happening with Kaneki in chapter 33 of part 1. He's by himself, Shu walks up, and this time, as you know, Shu knows a lot about Kaneki. He knows a lot about Kaneki. He knows what he likes, what type of books he likes, what type of person Kaneki was when he used to talk to him. And Shu goes along the lines of saying, like, that's right. I know more about Kaneki than Sasaki even does, that he knows of himself right now. Like, for instance, that is true. Sasaki doesn't know next to nothing about Kaneki. Shu knows a lot more about Kaneki. And in this act, this is the big thing that we need to realize. Shu is looking at Sasaki as if Sasaki is Kaneki. And I've covered this many times. Sasaki is not Kaneki. They may be in the same body, but they're not the same person. They're entirely two different personalities meshed in one body. This is a real life condition that happens to a lot of people in today's society. You can have split personalities where you can have two different personalities, two different people. Like you can have a very happy-go-lucky personality that's very nice and just has these different selective memories, and then you have this other personality that's very violent and aggressive or vulgar and has these other type of memories but doesn't remember the other memories. And this is kind of how some of the conditions are in society. And Shu, of course, he's not aware of this because he doesn't really know about what Sasaki is currently facing in his mind. Because if you think about it, Sasaki hasn't really mentioned about this at all to anyone, that he's seeing Kaneki, which if he did, oh god, I mean, either number one, you'd be thrown off as if he's fucking insane, and number two, most likely they'll realize Kaneki's coming back and he might be locked up. One or the other. That's what most likely would happen to Sasuke. So, of course, nobody knows, or even Shu himself doesn't realize that Sasuke is someone different entirely, just not given a new name. Like, the way Shu is looking at it, he's looking at it as if Kaneki was just given a new name. That's what he's looking at. It's like, okay, he's got amnesia, he was given a new name, that's it. That's what Shu is looking at this entire perspective as, and it's understandable. But this is going to be one of the big key factors of what most likely is going to cause some issues in the future, because Shu does not realize Sasuke is someone entirely, someone completely different, and what I'm about to mention explains how different Sasuke and Kaneki are as people. Get ready for this. So, Shu talks to Sasuke, and he says this: you like books written by Takasuki, right? As we know, Takasuki is Eto. Eto, the one-eyed ghoul of, Ogiri Tree. You should remember, the fucking queen, the badass. Come on. I mean, at the end of part 1 of Tokyo Ghoul, you should know who Eto is. Well, the writer, Eto, is mentioned, and you have to where she was like, you like those type of books, don't you? Do you remember Eto likes writing these type of books that are very tragic and sad, because you remember the entirety of part 1 of Tokyo Ghoul was actually based off of a tragic book that Eto wrote, kind of. It's very similar. And that's also what, at the first part of Tokyo Ghoul Re, if you remember Arima, he was reading a book and he's like, I've seen this before, like I've read this story before. It's because he was looking at the outcome of what happened at the end of, part 1 of Tokyo Ghoul. And you have it to where, Shu asked this, and this is what Sasuke says. Yeah, I read some of those books, but I'm kind of bad with them. And then Shu's like, hey? Question mark, because it's very different from what Kaneki would say. He says, apart from her short stories, all the important or main characters die in her works. That's a little heartbreaking. Let me cover this. I have a couple pictures, okay? I have a couple of pictures that I want to go over that really play a part with what this actually means. For one thing that you need to realize is that in Kaneki's sense, in the past, okay? Kaneki had a tragic and horrible upbringing. He had a lot of issues with his family, his mother, her death. So many issues when Kaneki was growing up. He lived a very tragic, sad, and lonely life. That was the life Kaneki lived. And in the perspective of that, like, his perspective of Eto's books, he was able to relate with the author. Because the author wrote these books that kind of told the story of Kaneki, what life he lived. And so, Kaneki was into those type of books because he could relate. And as I've said many times in different reviews, not Tokyo Ghoul, but the best way to really enjoy something is if you can relate with it, or understand at a fundamental level about some of the works. And that's kind of what this means right here. After the events of Tokyo Ghoul Part 1, Kaneki always, loved those books. But afterwards, we do know Sasuke has retained some of the things that Kaneki once had. They overlap with the same personalities. But in this perspective, since after the events of Part 1, Sasuke hasn't lived the life of what Kaneki lived. Let me explain. See, Kaneki, as I've already briefly covered, he was lonely. He was by himself majority of his life, and he dealt with all these issues at the beginning of Tokyo Ghoul and throughout Part 1, kind of by himself, a lonely path. And he never really had anyone to call a family, a big family at his early ages at the start of his life. And this is kind of what separates Kaneki and Sasuke as characters. See, Sasuke, he knows that whatever Kaneki once was, whatever his past self once was, that person lived a tragic life, or some form of sad life. He doesn't know, but he knows it was something sad, but he doesn't know the details. And so he can't really relate, so to say, with the author completely. But the thing is, Sasuke has lived a more cheerful and happy life. Think about this. He has a family. He has little kids kind of like family that he watches over. People that are very similar to him. Half ghouls. Some people he can talk to. and, you know, just have fun and a cheery time. He doesn't have to be on the run. He's not really lonely. He has people he can relate with. For instance, you know, Psycho or different other characters, because each individual of, you know, the Quinkix, you know, children, they have their own different similarities to Sasuke, or Kaneki when he once lived, and that's how, I guess, Sasuke can relate with him. And so, in this point, Sasuke is very different because he hasn't lived such a tragic life as Kaneki, which separates their upbringing, which changes the perspective of how Sasuke looks at these books. Now, bringing up a different part of Chapter 33 of Tokyo Ghoul Part 1, which plays a huge role with this chapter, which I think Ashita did purposely, which is very fucking funny. So, I want to quote what Kaneki, not Sasuke, what Kaneki said in Chapter 33 of Tokyo Ghoul Part 1. Actually, this is what Shu said. I'm sorry. Not Kaneki. Shu said this and quoted something. I'm quoting Shu from what he said in Chapter 33, not Kaneki. If you have offhand knowledge about the topics covered in the books, then you're able to enjoy the work on a deeper level. For instance, being able to relate with the author's works. For instance, how Kaneki can relate with Eto, with her upbringing. Once again, I'll repeat that. If you have offhand knowledge, that means prior experience, personal experience, about the topics covered in a book, any form of literature, then you're able to enjoy the work on a deeper level. And then right after that, one mere sentence, one piece of dialogue, it's capable of projecting a variety of visions. For instance, different theories or perspectives of that different part of work. And this also plays with what Kaneki says, or Sasuke. He says this: apart from her short stories, all the important main characters die in her works. It's a little heartbreaking. And right after that, this is what he says. He says, behind the skilled impressions and sophisticated writing style, unidentifiable sorrow, anger, emptiness, dark emotions show through. Maybe she succumbed to despair and has no hope for anyone. I think that's why she just wanted to, or wants to, destroy everything. Once again, I will repeat this form of dialogue that I just quoted. Let's repeat what Shu said. If you have offhanded knowledge about the topics covered in a book, then you're able to enjoy the work on a deeper level. For instance, Sasuke dived in so damn deep into what Eto wrote that he was able to understand the author's thought process, what the author is thinking when the author was writing this book. Because Sasuke does have offhanded experience with this issue. Tragedy, dealing with the death of his other personality, his original self, and the emotions of being alone and sad, sorrow, anger, emptiness. Sasuke feels emptiness right now because he feels the emptiness of not knowing his past, the sorrow of not really knowing what his true self was or probably where his parents are, and also his dark emotions show through. For instance, his dark emotions that are his inner mind, that Kaneki when he pops up. So this is kind of like Sasuke also relating with the author in some form. So you gotta love how Sasuke was able to dive into Eto's thought process and actually give characterization to Eto on a deeper level than we actually have seen from the series so far. Because this is the first time in Tokyo Ghoul, if you think about it, where we have seen the thought process or some form of hint of what type of life or more stuff about Eto. I mean, we made many theories. There's many theories about Eto out there. And one of these days I'm making an Eto video to kind of discuss all these different theories. But for now, you gotta love how we got this characterization through the books that Eto has wrote. It's beautiful. It's very beautiful. It's a beautiful way to showcase character development and characterization to a character. I really respect that. And in this panel, one thing I want to point out, you get to see to where Eto's face is shaded out while she lays in her room by herself, lonely, with books underneath her. We do know Eto and Kaneki are kind of very similar. They're very similar in some ways. And in the act of this, when you see Eto laying in these books by herself and her face shaded out, you could tell if you look closely, Eto is crying. Eto is sad and crying. It's depressing. It's really depressing. I heard that there is a 6 on Eto's face. I'll have to do more research into this later, but I heard there is a 6 on Eto's face on this panel. I'll look into it later. But it saddens me to see how Eto is like that, because it explains more of Eto's upbringing, of what really happened. Sad. It's really sad. I wonder if anyone else in Ogiri Tree knows about this type of lifestyle that Eto lives. For instance, this sadness and sorrow that Eto has. So, see, Sasuke kind of just debunked and opened up the offer itself. Just like that's what the offer thinks. I wonder if anyone else knows about that. Like when it comes to the people around Eto 24/7. Do they even know this side of Eto? Most likely not. Okay, now that I got about that, past that, you have it to where Shu, he's very distraught and upset because he realizes that Sasuke is a little bit different, like the way he's acting. For instance, this is what Shu says. That's a unique point of view. That's very interesting. This is the first time I met someone who focuses so much on the offer. Hey, why? And that's, Shu getting upset because he realizes, like, the viewpoint of Sasuke is very different from how Kaneki once was, and how he views the offer in those type of books. And this is what Shu eventually says. He's like, I am sick, as you can see. I don't really have many friends who are my age. Which leads into the panel I talked about just earlier ago, a couple minutes ago, maybe 5 or a couple minutes ago. I said how Shu's main goal was to have friends in the past on chapter 33. He once again brings this up in this chapter. I don't really have many friends who are my age. If you'd like to talk about books again sometime, Shu pretty much offering like, let's talk, let's be friends. That's kind of what Shu is saying. And he gets interrupted by the Quinkix children, getting to see little Psycho and Mutsuki pop up. Which I want to point out something in this page 13 or page 12, depending on, count color page. If you look in Psycho's hand, you see a little Himoto. Umaru, Himoto, the anime that's currently airing this season. You see a little Himoto figurine in Psycho's hand she's holding. Look very closely and you'll see it. It's very cute. It's very adorable. And you just see this little banter and dialogue between, Psycho and Sasuke, and Shu's in the background. He's like, oh my god, they're interrupting my conversation with Kaneki right now. Like, why the fuck are they doing this? They're interrupting, my chat time, alone time with Kaneki. And eventually, Sasuke's like, I gotta go back to work. And Shu's very upset and distraught. And what really saddens me is when you see Shu reaching out his hand. Like, he reaches out his hand after Sasuke. And when I saw this part in the chapter, it broke me because think about this for a second. The last time Shu really had any major interaction with Kaneki was that time when Kaneki left Shu in the final arc of Tokyo Ghoul Part 1. Think about it. At the end of Tokyo Ghoul Part 1, you remember Shu was very distraught. He's like going to kill Kaneki because he was about to leave him. He's like, I'll kill you myself. Then he charged him. And then, Kaneki beat him. And Shu was crying in a puddle of his own tears. That was like the last time that Shu really ever had a talk with Kaneki at all. And then his first conversation after that event, Sasuke leaves. He puts out his hand and he's like afraid to let him go because he might disappear for good. Sad. It's very sad. It's very sad just to see Shu like that. But it shows you that Shu has self-restraint now. That's also what that shows, actually, if you think about it. Because in the past, in Part 1, Tokyo Ghoul, Shu would have charged after Sasuke like that. He would have just rushed him and just grabbed him and dragged him off. I mean, that's kind of what most likely would have happened. And to see how Shu was able to hold himself back, like he puts out his hand, and he grabs his hand back, it shows he was restraining himself from doing things too quickly, too fast. That's that character development. Fucking great. As the chapter continues on, you get to see the antics of Shu. He's just watching and following around, Sasuke. And he's stalking him like he goes underneath the damn stairs, stalking Sasuke, which... you see him on the fucking stairs. He's under the fucking stairs looking at Sasuke. What the... Shu! What the hell, man? So, yeah, eventually it's the stalker ways, and then Shu's getting upset because, the midgets, as he says, are in his way. He can't be alone with Kaneki at all. And it upsets him quite a bit. And he's like, I need time where we can talk to him without rushing. Like, Shu doesn't want to rush his conversation with Kaneki. He doesn't want to quickly get out the details. He wants to take his time and chat. He wants to get all the details out for Sasuke can remember Kaneki. And that is what Shu's goal is. He doesn't want to rush things along. He doesn't want to just say something in a span of 3 minutes. He wants to say it in a span of maybe even an hour or a couple hours. He wants to talk about everything. And that's kind of what Shu means when he's like, I don't want to rush nothing when he talks to Kanye. Now, one thing though, you have to where the second picture gets shown to Shu, and we kind of find out the second picture gets to show Kaneki when he had his solid black hair, before he became tortured and turned into white hair Kaneki. You have it to where you get to see the similarities between Kaneki and Sasuke because, you know, Sasuke's hair is going a little bit more black now. You see the similarities between the two pictures. And what's really cool is when, you know, Shu talks about, like, Hori, my little friend, she knows exactly what to do. Like, she knows me so well. And, like, what to give me at the right proper times to really boost my spirit. You gotta love that. It just goes, once again, to show you the Chi and Shu, you know, I guess, perspective of their relationship. Which gets a flashback to Hori, or Chi. We get to find out more about her. This is what she says. I want to quote her. Can you really die for some ingredients? Let me once again bring something up. In this panel, where Chi Hori says, can you really die for some ingredients? Ingredients, quotations, necessarily mean Kaneki or Sasuke. That's what ingredients mean. If you think about it, look behind Chi, you see a vast sky behind her. As I already mentioned, when you see a sky like this, it's very ominous. Tragedy is coming. Is this indirect foreshadowing that maybe Shu might die? If he fucking dies, if Shu Cheetah, please. You're grabbing my balls here, please. Don't do this shit to me, okay? Don't grab my balls and twist them. I don't want my boy Shu to die. Okay? Okay? We're clear. Don't do this shit to me. Don't foreshadow. It's like, just throw out this death flags to Shu like it's nothing. Don't do that shit to me. I swear, sometimes it gets me upset. And then right after that, you see it to where Shu looks up in the sky after his chat with Hori. He's like, the people from Enteku, little Hinami and the rest, I wonder if they know that Kaneki is still alive. Very ominous. Once again, the background with the sky, and it goes to show you once again character development that Shu is connected with Banjo, Hinami, and everybody else. He actually cares about them as friends now instead of just people that got in his way with, you know, his ingredient, Kaneki. And at the end, you get to see to where Chi, she's running away from CCG, which I've already covered. She's in a bad situation. She's having to run away. And eventually it leads into where Kanye talks to some people of Ogiri Tree after the aftermath of Big Madam with, you know, how they're out of a job and out of work. You have it to where Kanye walks up with his badass 6 shades. He's like, I got a job for you guys. And this job is to make time for Shu to get in contact with Sasuke. I want to theorize real quick before I end this review. My theory is that Kanye is paying these Ogiri Tree workers to kill the Queen Kick squad. Saiko, Shirazu, Ure, Mutsuki, kill them. For Shu can have alone time with Sasuke. I feel like that's what Kanye is trying to do at this moment. I really hope I'm wrong. I really do. Because we do know there's a lot of death flags on our characters. Something bad is going to be happening very soon. We know. We're getting up to that chapter 50 mark, and we know what happens in chapter 50 of part 1. And this is reverse. Like, this is a retelling of part 1 of Tokyo Ghoul. Scared. Way this is going, someone might die. So, we'll see. Tell me your thoughts in the comments below. How do you feel about chapter 39 of Tokyo Ghoul? You all have a wonderful day or night. Oh yeah, one thing actually. I gotta mention one more thing. I heard that Tokyo Ghoul is on break, actually. I heard Tokyo Ghoul chapter 40 is going to be on break next week. I don't think we're going to have a chapter. So, if we have a chapter next week, I guess that'll be a good thing. But I heard we most likely might not have a chapter. So, I just want to clarify that right now. If you watch the end of this review. I don't know how many of you are still watching this review because it's very fucking long. I'm willing to bet it is. But, you all have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.